All right. So we got a topic here for Zenith Charity Foundation. One of the things that seem very important to cover before we really get started with any major projects here or establishing this program. One thing before starting a charity, very big question is how much of the retained earnings can we allocate towards employees? So, um, essentially what the main question is if I were to start a nonprofit, what percentage maximum could I allocate of the donations or like just say retained earnings to pay employees, including executives, anybody like just overall, just across the board. um, so we found out uh, conducting research that there's no specific legal maximum percentage set by the IRS for how much a nonprofit's budget can go towards salaries. Legally, you could theoretically spend 90% of your revenue on compensation as long as those salaries are deemed reasonable for the work being performed. However, while there isn't a hard legal cap, there are three real ceilings you need to navigate. The IRS reasonableness test. The IRS requires that compensation be reasonable and not excessive. To determine this, they look at what a person in a similar role at a similar sized organization in the same geographic area would make. The risk: if you pay yourself $150,000 to run a tiny nonprofit that only brings in $200,000, which would be like 75% of the revenue, the IRS may view this as private inurement or using a nonprofit for personal profit. The penalty: if the IRS finds the salary is excessive, they can levy heavy excise taxes, often 25% of the excess amount, and in extreme cases, revoke your 501c3 status. The watchdog benchmarks: Clarity watchdogs like Charity Navigator or the Better Business Bureau and sophisticated donors use overhead ratios to grade nonprofits. The 65-35 rule: many experts recommend that at least 65 to 75% of your total expenses should go directly to programs, the actual work, leaving 25 to 35% for overhead or management, fundraising, and administrative salaries. The impact: if your overhead is too high, for example, 50% or more, you may receive a failing grade from watchdogs, which makes it nearly impossible to win grants or attract large donors. Governance constraints: as the founder, you cannot legally set your own salary. The independent board: you must have an independent board of directors, usually at least three people who are not related to you and not paid by the nonprofit, who vote on your compensation. Comparability data: the board is required to document that they looked at salary surveys or comparable data from other nonprofits to justify why your salary is fair. Summary of general industry standards: we have budget size for, say, less than $250,000. See, typical founder or ED salary. Okay, yeah. So founder ED salary for a budget of less than $250,000. It's often between 45 to $65,000, or even $0 early on. This would um, consume about 20 to 35% of the overhead for something of with a budget of 250,000 to $1 million. The typical founder ED salary would be 65,000 to 110,000, which would consume about 15 to 25% of overhead. Um, and then for a budget size of $1 million plus, the founder ED salary could be $110,000 or more. This would be highly variable. Again, the more you make, it would increase proportionally. And the healthy overhead here for $1 million plus budget size would be, this would take out probably about 10-20% of the retained earnings. One pro tip: in the first year or two, many founders take a very low salary or none at all to build up a program track record. This makes the organization look more attractive to donors, which ultimately helps you scale the budget to a point where it can support a full market rate salary. For the reasonable compensation policy, this is a vital document for a new nonprofit that protects you, the founder, and your board of directors from IRS penalties by establishing a clear, objective process for setting pay. Here's a template designed to meet the IRS safe harbor requirements. We have the organization name, effective date, the purpose. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that all compensation arrangements are reasonable as defined by the IRS based on objective data and determined by individuals who do not have a financial conflict of interest. The decision making body, independence. The salary of the executive director or the founder and other disqualified persons or high-level employees or family members must be set by the board of directors or a designated compensation committee. Exclusion: any individual being considered for a salary adjustment or any person with a family or business relationship to that individual must not be present during the discussion or vote regarding their own compensation. Use of comparability data. The board must justify the compensation amount by researching what similar organizations pay for similar roles. The comparability data may include salary surveys from regional nonprofit associations, Form 990 data from at least 3 organizations of similar size, mission, and geographic location, documented offers from similar organizations for the same position. Process of approval. The board shall follow these 3 steps for every compensation review. For the review, evaluate the individual's performance and the organization's current financial health. Benchmark, review the comparability data collected as described in Section 3. Vote, approve the compensation by a majority vote of the independent directors. Contemporaneous documentation. The board must record the results of the compensation review in the meeting minutes. These minutes must include the terms of the compensation and the date it was approved, the members of the board who weren't present for, or sorry, the members of the board who were present for the discussion and those who voted on it, the specific comparability data and how it was obtained, and any actions taken by a board member who had a conflict of interest, for example, leaving the room for whatever reason. Implementation tips. The minute rule. The IRS likes to see these minutes recorded within 60 days of the decision. Don't wait until the end of the year to write them down. The founder's role. Since you are likely the one building the budget, you can provide the research to the board, but you must physically leave the room when they deliberate and vote on your specific number. Annual review. Even if your salary doesn't change, the board should reapprove it to show they are consistently monitoring the organization's finances. For prospective partnerships, government or the regulators. In the nonprofit world, the government is your most rigorous business partner. The IRS is your primary regulator. You'll interact with them via Form 1023 to get status and Form 990, the annual public disclosure. Arizona Department of Revenue, or ADOR, ADOR. You must register for a transaction privilege tax or TPT license if you plan to sell anything and apply for specific state level exemptions. Arizona Secretary of State, where you file your articles of incorporation and handle annual reports to keep your corporate entity in good standing. Resource partners, the infrastructure. These are the groups that help you manage the business of being a nonprofit so you can focus on the mission. Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits. This is the primary regional hub. They provide training on nonprofit GAAP or GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and access to discounted insurance or DNO insurance. DNO insurance is mandatory for your board. CPA specializing in nonprofit accounting is crucial. Nonprofit accounting or fund accounting is fundamentally different from standard business accounting. You need someone who understands restricted versus unrestricted funds. The score or for score or greater Phoenix organization, they offer free mentorship from retired executives who can help you refine your business strategy and cost determinants specifically for the local market. Stakeholders or investors and sorry, geez, stakeholders or investors, in other words, the funders. In a 501c3, there are no stockholders in the legal sense. No one owns the equity. Instead, you have stakeholders. Major donors, they act like angel investors but expect a social return on investment or SROI. Grant makers or foundations, these are your institutional investors. Partnerships here require high transparency in your functional expenses, that 65-35 rule we noted. The board of directors, legally, they are your fiduciaries. They are your most important internal partnership because they carry the legal liability for your financial decisions. Third party services and business affiliates, nonprofit merchant processors, companies like Tithe, Lee, Backbowed, Tithe, Lie, Backbowed, or Classy. Standard processors like Stripe are fine, but nonprofit specific ones often handle the tax receipt automation required by the IRS. Payroll providers, since you'll be navigating Scottsdale or Phoenix specific payroll taxes and foundry compensation, a provider like Gusto or ADP with a nonprofit wing is helpful to ensure your own salary is reported correctly. Nonprofit co-op, what? Co-opeters, co competitors, nonprofit competitors, or co-operators. Um, Hold on. Sorry, I may have made a typo. I threw myself off. I made an error. Hold on. What is this word? I probably use this word like I put this note originally together maybe months ago, and I. All right, sorry. Anyway, I'm just gonna take that off. All right. So, sorry. Pardon that pause. You can skip past that. Um, Fiscal sponsors. If you aren't ready for your profile, or if you aren't ready to file for your own 501c3 yet, you can partner with an established nonprofit to act as your fiscal sponsor. They take a small percentage, usually 5 to 10%, to provide the accounting and legal umbrella, allowing you to accept tax deductible donations immediately. Programmatic partners. Programmatic partners. Other Phoenix nonprofits that provide complementary services. For example, if your nonprofit provides job training, you might partner with the local food bank to provide wraparound services. Marketing and advertisement. Branding strategy, the impact first identity. Your brand shouldn't focus on how much you pay, but on the efficiency of your engine. The value proposition for employees. Market the organization as a place of high professional development and mission alignment. In the Scottsdale Phoenix market, highlight that you offer market rate for the mission. Highlight that you offer market rate for mission driven work. This tells the public that you aren't overpaying, but you aren't starving your staff either, which is a sustainability red flag. The value proposition for donors. Use restricted giving as a brand pillar. Allow donors to choose. 100% of this donation goes to service X, while you choose unrestricted grants or corporate sponsorships to cover your competitive salaries. This lets the consumer feel the 100% impact they crave. Sales promotion strategy, the philanthropic offer. In a nonprofit, your sales are your fundraising appeals. Matching challenges. A local donor will match every dollar, effectively covering your administrative costs, so 100% of your gift goes to the field. This is a classic psychological promotion that removes the overhead guilt from the consumer. Tiered impact levels. Instead of asking for money, sell outcomes. $50 equals 10 meals, $500 equals one community workshop. By pricing the outcome, the salary cost becomes an invisible part of the manufacturing cost of that social good. Social media engagement, the behind the curtain approach. Social media is where you bridge the gap between impact and the people doing the work. Day in the life content, show your employees actually performing the services. When donors see a highly skilled professional solving a complex problem, they understand why that person costs money. The transparency report, post an annual where the money went infographic. Be bold. If 25% went to salaries, explain that our experts are our greatest tool for change. Engagement loop, use LinkedIn for employee branding or attracting talent, and Instagram or Facebook for donor storytelling or emotional impact. Navigating the employee versus consumer tension. Employees make more money via high percentage of salary allocation. More money is reserved for salaries, encouraging more people to work for the organization. Consumers feel like they contribute more money via low percentage salary allocation. More money is reserved for actual philanthropic services, making people feel more impactful. To manage the conflict between your two goals, use this hybrid messaging framework. The stakeholder, employees, the messaging strategy is we invest in our people because they are the ones who scale the impact. The goal is retention and high quality staff, or for high quality staff to stay longer, reducing turnover costs. For consumers, the messaging strategy would be we keep our lean management team focused on 85% program efficiency. The goal would be conversion. Donors give more when they see a lean machine. Lean green machine. Strategy note. Sophisticated donors, the ones in Scottsdale who write the 10K plus checks, actually get nervous if your salaries are too low. They know that cheap talent usually leads to a failed organization. Your marketing to them should be we hire the best to ensure your investment isn't wasted. Budgeting and financial strategy. Business objectives, the impact ROI. In a nonprofit, profit is replaced by social return. Your objectives should be categorized into two streams. Operational objectives, reaching a specific number of units of service, for example, number of people helped, workshops held, or items distributed. Financial objectives, building a 6-month operating reserve. For a new nonprofit, the objective is often break even plus reserve to ensure you don't collapse if a single large donor pulls out. Cost determinants. If you are still defining your services, you should categorize costs into fixed versus variable to understand your burn rate. Fixed or static costs. These keep these as low as possible early on. Use co-working spaces or virtual offices. For variable or scalable costs, these should only increase as your donations increase. Step fixed costs, these are the riskiest costs, only higher when the workload exceeds 1.5% of your current capacity. Discounts and rebates, the nonprofit edge. One of the biggest mistakes new founders make is paying retail for services. As a 501c3, you have access to massive cost saving programs. The tech soup, this is a must. They provide deep discounts, often 80 to 90% on software like Microsoft 365, Adobe, and QuickBooks. Google for nonprofits. You can qualify for $10,000 a month in free Google search ads or Google ad grants. This is a massive rebate on marketing costs. Sales tax exemption. In Arizona, 501c3 organizations are not automatically exempt from state sales tax on purchases, unlike some other states. You typically still pay transaction privilege tax or TPT unless you fall under very specific categories like qualifying healthcare or food banks. Taxes and tariffs. While you are exempt from federal income tax, you're not exempt from all taxes. Payroll taxes. You must still pay the employer portion of Social Security and Medicare for any employees, including yourself. Unrelated business income tax, or UBIT. If you sell a product or a service that is not substantially related to your mission, for example, selling branded t shirts purely for profit, you may have to pay corporate income tax on those earnings. Tariffs. If your future product involves importing materials, for example, medical supplies or components for an engineering project, you are still subject to standard international tariffs. Nonprofit status does not grant a free pass at the border. Functional expenses strategy. Nonprofit accounting, or generally accepted accounting principles, requires you to categorize. Nonprofit accounting, or GAAP, requires you to categorize every dollar into three buckets. Instead of focusing on specific job titles, focus on these percentages to guide your future hiring. Program services, 70% to 85%. This is the mission money. If you hire a counselor for a recovery program, their salary goes here. Donors love seeing this number high. Management and general, 10 to 15%. This is overhead. This includes your bookkeeper, legal fees, and a portion of your executive salary dedicated to administration. And fundraising, 5 to 10%. This is the cost of getting more money, grant writers, event planners, etc. Spend money to make money. It's a old rule. It's a known rule, good rule. Strategy tip. When you eventually hire staff, write their job descriptions so that a high percentage of their time is spent on program services. This keeps your overhead ratio low and your watchdog ratings high. Building a scalable compensation model. Since you don't have a definitive budget yet, you can create a salary step down or step up plan. This is a common strategy for founders. Oh, geez. Okay. So we have different phases here, milestones, and the founder compensation strategy. For phase one, the seed, the milestone would be under $50,000 in revenue. This founder compensation strategy would be a stipend or $0. Focus on proof of concept to show donors the money goes to the cause. Phase two, during growth, the milestone would be $100,000 to $250,000 in revenue. The compensation strategy would be for the founder would be a partial market rate. The board approves the salary based on 25% of total revenue, capped at a regional benchmark. For phase three, maturity, or as it matures. Sorry. The milestone would be, say, $500,000 plus in revenue. The founder compensation strategy would be the full market rate. Compensation is set purely by comparability data, independent of revenue percentage. For the independent board as a strategic asset, since you are in the Phoenix or Scottsdale area, you have access to a massive pool of retired executives and professionals. To satisfy the IRS independence rule, aim for a skills-based board. The financier, the CPA or auditor to handle the Form 990, the legalist, an attorney to handle the private inurement risks, the community pillar, someone with local ties to help with fundraising. Then regarding avoiding the founder's trap, one of the biggest risks for a ground up nonprofit is private inurement. To protect yourself, avoid percentage of fundraising pay. Never pay yourself or a fundraiser a percentage of the donations brought in. The IRS and the Association of Fundraising Professionals, or AFP, consider this unethical and a major red flag. Keep a conflict of interest policy. Beyond just the salary policy you listed, have a general policy stating that the nonprofit won't buy services or rent office space from you, the founder, unless it is significantly below market value. For legal and regulatory compliance strategy, building a nonprofit in Arizona requires a multi-layered legal strategy that coordinates federal, state, and local regulations. Since you are in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, you have a specific set of local filing requirements to navigate alongside the broader IRS mandates. Federal compliance, the IRS framework. The IRS doesn't just care about your taxes, they care about your governance. Form 1023 or 1023EZ. This is your application for tax exempt status. Most small startups use the EZ version if they anticipate less than $50,000 in annual gross receipts. The 990 series, every year you must file a version of Form 990. 990N, the e postcard for receipts of less than or equal to $50,000. The 990EZ for receipts between $50,000 and $50,000 and $200,000. The full 990 for receipts greater than $200,000. Failure to file for 3 consecutive years results in automatic revocation of your status. Unrelated business income, or UBIT, if you sell products or services not directly related to your mission, for example, selling Mock Speedway's merchandise, it's one of our subsidiaries, or affiliate companies for Infinity Corp, you must file Form 990T and pay corporate rate taxes on those specific profits. Arizona State Compliance, or ACC, and SOS. Arizona has a unique two-step registration process for nonprofits. Arizona Corporation Commission, or ACC, you must file articles of incorporation and a certificate of disclosure. For the annual report, this is due every year on your incorporation anniversary date via the eCorp portal. Arizona Secretary of State, or SOS, while most charities no longer need to register for charitable solicitation at the state level as of 2013, you should still check for specific requirements if you use professional solicitors or certain fundraising platforms. Transaction Privilege Tax, or TPT. If you sell anything, you need an Arizona TPT license. Note that 501c3 status does not automatically exempt you from paying sales tax on your own purchases in Arizona. Governance standards, your protective shield. To avoid the private inurement penalties you noted earlier, your legal strategy must include these 3 ratified documents. The conflict of interest policy, legally required for 501c3s to ensure board members aren't profiting from the organization's contracts. Whistleblower policy, protects employees or volunteers who report financial mismanagement. Document retention policy, sets a schedule for how long you keep financial records, usually 7 years, to satisfy potential audits. Local and emerging risks. For the 2026 focus, as of 2026, there are new regulatory focus areas for nonprofits. The AI use policy. If you use generative AI for marketing or operations, the IRS and state regulators are increasingly looking for policies regarding data privacy or donor information protection and intellectual property, ensuring AI-generated content doesn't violate copyrights. Cybersecurity compliance. For organizations in the Phoenix Tech Corridor, funders are now frequently conditioning grants on having funders are now frequently conditioning grants on having documented incident response plans and secure donor databases. Whew. Well, mouth is all dry. I did smoke a little bit though, so makes sense. Compliance checklist for year one. We have task, agency, and frequency for articles of incorporation. The agency we need would be or need to partner or work with would be the Arizona Corp Commission or Corporation Commission or ACC. Frequency of this would be just once at the start. Uh, we need to talk to the IRS about the EIN and tax it. So we need to talk to the IRS about the EIN or tax ID, as well as the tax exempt application 1023. These would both be only once. We need to talk to the AZ Corp Commission or Corporation Commission or ACC for the annual report. This would be annually. We need to talk to the IRS annually about Form 990, and then we need to communicate with the Arizona Department of Revenue annually about the TPT license renewal. All right, we have different elevator pitches here for possible allocation of budgets. For strategy A, the high salary allocation or investing in talent, these pitches focus on the idea that complex problems require elite professionals and underpaying staff is a risk to the mission. For pitch one, the expertise hook, best for major donors, we are tackling insert problem in the valley, and frankly, a problem this complex can't be solved by well meaning amateurs. We've built an organization that treats social change like a high growth startup. By offering competitive salaries that attract top tier talent from the private sector, we ensure that every donor dollar is managed by an expert. We don't just provide a service, we provide a high performance engine that solves the root cause of the problem. Pitch two, the sustainability hook, best for foundation grants. Most nonprofits fail because of founder burnout and high staff turnover, which is essentially a waste of donor money. Our strategy is different. We allocate a higher percentage of salaries to ensure our team is stable, professional, and here for the long haul. Our talent first model reduces our long term training costs and ensures that when you invest in us, you are investing in a permanent solution for the Phoenix community, not just a temporary band aid. Now, strategy B, the high service allocation or maximizing lean impact. These pitches focus on the efficiency ratio, appealing to donors who want to feel their specific dollar reached a specific person. Pitch three, the direct impact hook, for best for individual or retail donors. When you give to our organization, you aren't paying for fancy offices or a bloated administration. We've engineered our model from the ground up to be ultra lean, ensuring that over 85% of every dollar goes directly to insert product or service. We use automated systems and a dedicated volunteer leadership core so that when you give $100, 85 dollars of that is sitting on the front lines of whichever given cause that day or tonight. It's about maximum mission, minimum friction. Pitch four, the scaling hook, best for corporate sponsors. We're building the most efficient social service delivery system in Scottsdale. By keeping our fixed costs and executive salaries strictly capped, we can scale our services 3 times faster than traditional organizations. We view ourselves as a pass-through entity for good. Your corporate sponsorship doesn't get lost in our overhead. It gets converted immediately into whichever given measurable outcome is related to whatever measurable outcomes used to as a metric for measuring our progress for whatever given project. We make your CSR budget work harder than anyone else in the state. Solid. All right. For the executive summary, for the nonprofit financial and operational framework, the core philosophy, the impact versus infrastructure, The central strategy hinges on a dual messaging model that balances high talent recruitment with lean service delivery. By establishing reasonableness through market data rather than arbitrary gaps, the organization can scale without sacrificing donor trust. The financial strategy and compensation, the 65-35 benchmark, aiming for at least 65 to 75% of expenses to be categorized as program services to satisfy watchdog standards or charity navigator and BBB. Founder compensation, salaries are set by an independent board of directors, a minimum of 3 members using comparability data or 990 filings of similar Phoenix and Scottsdale entries to meet the IRS safe harbor requirements. Revenue allocation. The budget will be structured into 3 functional buckets: programs, management, and fundraising. Initial years may focus on lower salaries to build a program track record, scaling to market rates as revenue grows. Regulatory and legal ecosystem, federal compliance, maintenance of 501(c)(3) status through annual Form 990 filings and strict avoidance of private inurement, excessive personal benefit or personal benefit, Arizona registration, annual filings with the Arizona Corporation Commission or ACC, and maintaining a local statutory agent. Tax obligations. While exempt from federal income tax, the entity remains liable for payroll taxes or 6.2% Social Security and 1.45% Medicare and unrelated business income tax or UBIT on non-mission related sales. Exemptions. Use of AZTBT Form 5000 for sales tax exemptions on mission critical purchases through retail sales by the nonprofit may still require a TBT license. Marketing and partnership strategy, the branding paradox. To employees, a professional home where your expertise is valued with market rate compensation. To consumers, a lean engine where your donation is optimized for direct impact. Strategic alliances, leveraging the alliance of Arizona nonprofits for infrastructure and TechSoup for 80 to 90% discounts on critical operational software. Transparency, using annual impact reports to reframe overhead not as a cost but as the fuel that drives social results. Immediate action plan. So for the first action step, we would be focusing on board recruitment. Uh, we would recruit a CPA and an attorney in the Scottsdale or Phoenix area for governance. Step 2, filing. Form a nonprofit corporation with the ACC and apply for an EIN. 3, policy adoption. Ratify the reasonable compensation and conflict of interest policies. Pilot model. Define the specific service to begin the logic model and initial fundraising. We got a few hashtags here. We have hashtag invest in people, hashtag nonprofit startup, hashtag nonprofit transparency, and hashtag trust in giving. And then references and sources here is just Google Gemini, AI chatbot, whatever sources used there. All right. It's got that summed up. Again, that is retained earnings allocated for salaries for Zenith Corporation. So let's see if we can use that. I'm going to go ahead and plug that into accounting. I'm going to make it its own thing. All right. Oh, geez, my hair is weird right now. I didn't realize that. Let's go fix that. I'm going to go fix that. Oh, got a lot of work to do today.